Flip phones.
Gratitude calling.
I'm Elanah Arnold.
And I'm Claudia O'Sullivan.
We know what you're thinking.
Whoever uses a phone like that is probably super hot.
So cool.
It girl.
Popular.
Sexy. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Someone take that down.
So embarrassing. You
Put
guys
that
are
up there.
so bad. Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. We use those phones.
And now that you called us hot,
That's what you did.
let me explain how we got here. Flashback to late May of last year. I'm sitting in my bed in the same pajama pants I've been wearing for 4 days. My mom just spent $50 on hand sanitizer. My dad is parading around the house in just underwear, going on about how he doesn't have to wear pants to work anymore. And I've just promised my teacher for the 4th day in a row that I've been trying so hard to fix my laptop camera as I put another layer of tape over it. I didn't know how much longer I could do it for.
As summer was approaching, the reality that it'd be more of the same became clear. I would still be locked up in prison with my arch nemesis, love you, mom and dad, and we still would not get to see our homies.
Every day felt like Groundhog Day. We would wake up and do the exact same thing. Spend every waking moment on our phones, trying to replicate our normal lives through a screen. Even with seemingly endless possibilities for connection via the internet, we both felt lonelier than ever.
It felt like the world was heading to a dark place and we had no control over it or ourselves. Elanah and I did not love spending 12 hours a day on our phones, but regardless, we did it daily. Everyone kept going on and on about how lucky we were to have technology because it kept us connected to the real world, but Elanah and I felt more disconnected from our actual reality than ever. We were sacrificing being in touch with ourselves for maintaining connection with everyone else.
With most aspects of our situation out of our control, whether or not we would have a senior year, ever get to return to campus, and of course, the mass number of people dying worldwide from this deadly virus, we both felt the need to take agency over something in our lives. And the most obvious thing seemed to be the thing that we had centered most of our lives around: our phones. So we did the logical thing, and we locked them in safes.
We didn't know whether the issue was actually our phones, but it seemed like a good test of willpower, something to shake things up a little bit.
There was definitely a learning curve. For the first time in a while, we had to do things just for ourselves. We would usually post the best parts of our day on our Snapchat stories or send videos to our friends, but now that we can no longer do that, we bought these little journals and we started writing down the best parts of our day and just things that we were grateful for. It was something to break up the monotony and give us some memories to look back on.
We were no longer living for our social media. It was just us and our thoughts. And I know we barely know each other, but you can imagine how scary it would be for a girl like me to be alone with her thoughts.
Life was boring for the first few days. For some reason, I just could not understand how I could go a day without watching videos of tweens lip syncing and dancing to songs about drugs and gang violence on TikTok. But I started reading and working out. I finished all of my college essays, and I was spending quality time with my loved ones. But people handle change in different ways, and that is okay. Claudia here took a different approach.
I guess you could say I wasn't doing too hot. So I did what people do when they hit their lows. I hired a woman off the internet to teach me how to meditate. Her name was Kiki, and I was paying her to show me how to chill out and find myself. So the night of our first meeting, I hop on the Google Meet link, and she's just breathing into the microphone, which was scary. But eventually we got past that, and I started opening up to her and telling her how I was feeling so down, and I was on my phone, and all this stuff. And as I was letting my guard down, she cuts me off and hits me with, "You're stupid," which was super fun to hear because I love compliments. But I asked her to elaborate, and she told me to close my eyes. She said to imagine that I was in a boat in the ocean, and there were these super choppy waves. She said that these waves represented everything we perceive in our everyday lives. The things on social media that invoke an emotion, the things that we observe when you go out into the everyday world. She said that what Elanah and I were doing was trying to remove these waves, which is, as she put so kindly, what made us so stupid. Because one, it's impossible to remove technology in the real world from your life. But two, it's much easier to get away from those waves when you need to. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head for the first time since I realized that the 10-year age gap between me and my older brother was not on purpose.
This mistake is doing a TED Talk.
Getcha some? What I mean by that is that's when I realized that the ocean is not just the surface with the waves, there's a floor. And that floor is always calm.
The next morning, Claudia called me and told me about her little talk with Kiki, and we wanted to decide whether it was true or not. Were we trying to mess with nature and make the ocean surface flat? We thought back to the prior months of quarantine, and our girl Kiki was not far off. It felt like we were on a pool noodle in the middle of the ocean during Hurricane Katrina, getting hit by all these waves with no reprieve. Now, it was the summer, we were in quarantine, and we had virtually isolated ourselves from anything that can affect us. But that way of life is unusual and unsustainable, especially in a time when technology does help us out in many ways.
Also, how are we supposed to get away from those waves or reach that ocean floor like Kiki said?
We had zero clue. But we kept doing Flip Phone Summer, or FPS as we like to call it, and every night I would call Claudia and we would share our gratitude moments for that day. And what we were realizing was our lives were not changing, but for some reason, every night we were able to name more moments than the night before.
Here are some random entries from a day over the summer.
Number 1, had a Zoom call with my grandma. She never figured out where the unmute button was, but it was a thought that counted. Number 2, saw an 8-pound container of mayonnaise at Costco. And number 3, did a slip and slide with my little sister. I absolutely ate it and got dirt in my nose and my mouth, but she laughed really hard.
Number 1, got the best sleep of my life on Elanah's patio and looked good while doing it. Number 2, finished my first book in 5 years. See you in the fall, Harvard. And number 3, threw my jitterbug flip phone at a wall because it's a piece of garbage, and it didn't break.
Now, if I told you that we were the happiest that we had been in months, you would probably think we lived pretty pathetic lives. But there was something about writing down these moments every day and then reading them at night that made us unequivocally happy.
We thought it was sort of weird because these things that we suddenly appreciated so much had always been there, but at that point in time, they meant way more to us.
Occasionally throughout the summer, we would link up with some of our friends, socially distanced in someone's backyard, and they would catch us up on all of the things that we were missing out on now that we were offline.
One of those days was in late June, so Elanah and I get to our socially distanced hangout with our friends, and within the first 5 minutes, we had lost the crowd. These girls were bored of us, and they were scrolling through TikTok, looking at the videos of the kids with the gang violence and all that stuff, and they're completely uninterested in whatever we were saying. They were much more engrossed in what a million of their closest friends were doing online than any of our conversations.
When we got in the car that night, Claudia and I felt this weird feeling, the one that we were subconsciously trying to escape by going offline. We felt ourselves drifting towards the ocean surface.
What we realized in that moment was that when you prioritize what's on your phone over the authentic human connection in front of you, you're choosing envy over gratitude. You're choosing to see what you don't have instead of appreciating what you actually do have.
When we got home that night, we did our gratitude journal. You guys are never going to guess what didn't make the journal.
What didn't make the journal?
Any of the abstract updates that our friends gave us that night.
And you're never going to guess how we felt doing that journal.
How did we feel?
Like $1 million. The process of actively affirming that what we were most grateful for were the things that we don't need a phone to appreciate was what brought us back down to that ocean floor away from the waves of envy. It's what made those journal entries mean way more to us than any of the abstract updates we saw on our friends' phones.
What we realized was that social media gives us all of these huge things, literally an entire worldview at our fingertips. This makes us miss out on many of the things that are happening in our lives because we are so obsessed with what is happening in everybody else's. We are constantly envying what we see online.
As summer came to an end, Elanah and I's biggest fear was that this FPS, flip phone summer, mentality that made us so happy would just disappear. But Kiki knew what she was talking about. Technology is not the issue. The best part of going offline for Elanah and I was getting the perspective to see that social media is filled with these small, transient waves of things that probably don't even need to affect us. We realized the importance of choosing what propels our submarines. Oh, Claudia, what submarines, you might be asking? The one in this completely unedited, unphotoshopped photo of Elanah and I in the ocean.
Those waves up there represent every single stimulus that we see and perceive, whether it's on social media, on the internet, or just by going out and observing everyday life. Now, we don't expect you guys to see this TED Talk and delete all social media off your phones. We did that so that you don't have to. But we think it's super important to remember to maintain control when using social media. So if you know that scrolling through Instagram and seeing what everyone you follow has and is doing makes you less grateful for what you have in front of you, then don't do it. Social media gives us infinite things to envy. When we choose envy, we move up in the ocean in our submarine towards those waves with no reprieve. But practicing gratitude gives us infinite things to be grateful for, bringing us back down to the peace and calm of the ocean floor.
Elanah and I are back on the grid. Technology is sick, and it's an amazing tool. The biggest difference between us now and us in May is that now we realize we do not need to get rid of these waves to live happy lives. It's actually the opposite.
By actively committing to practicing gratitude, we're able to reach the peace and calm of the ocean floor whenever we need to.
So, if you want to be hot and cool like us, consider finding ways in your life where you can actively practice gratitude. For Elanah and I, it's our 3 Good Things journal, but gratitude is not at all limited to some notebook.
Now, if you don't mind, I need to do my 3 Good Things journal for the day. Number 1, became an A-list celebrity through TEDxRansomEvergladesSchool. Number 2, this thing is pre-recorded, so you have no clue that this is take 6. And number 3, for your time and attention and for coming to our TEDx talk.
Thanks for coming to our TEDx talk.